Welcome back to Palmerston North and welcome to Kids Round. The execution is sumptuous.
Oh, stand tall, Palmerston North. Your Hurricanes are going to put on a show tonight.
It's on here for the Highlanders, it is. Stevenson, a little show, gets it away for the winner. That is some finish. Goes for the drop goal. It's over. Coming out of 10.
Today, the pressure is on the defending champions to keep their title hopes alive. Vahakolo's got away from Motier.
He's going away to land. They're in again. The Blues go back to that. Bad just got worse for the Crusaders, but good just got a whole lot better for the Blues.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Good evening. Welcome into the breakdown. Well, David Havili joins an ever-growing injury list for the Crusaders. We've got Chiefs coach Clayton McMillan joining us on the show a little bit later on, and is one of our greatest ever players, Sam Whitelock, set for a return to New Zealand and to the All Blacks in 2024. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but welcoming back the panel, Sir John Kerwin, who's very happy, of course, Mills Molina, also happy, and Jeff Wilson. I'll tell you what,
Not
JK.
happy.
You're not happy?
No,
I'm happy with
we're
the
happy,
fight.
he's not happy.
Yeah.
Why would I not be happy?
Oh, just your Crusaders.
It's great to be here.
Your Crusaders.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I'm happy for myself.
It hasn't happened very often.
I'm happy for myself.
We were there last night. We got to experience it firsthand. It took a long, long time. A long, long time for the Blues to finally get up over the Crusaders.
I tell you what, JK, you know I'm not even a Blues fan. I want a Heritage jersey. Those were cool out there last night. Seriously
No, they gave
cool.
me nightmares. I'm not happy about those.
Why?
Because I remember those jerseys being all over us in the early days, to be fair.
They were fantastic. Seeing Caleb Clark in the same jersey that his father wore, it was really, really cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. Just really good to see Paddy out there as well. I thought, you know, he's been out for a while, Mills. Not easy, and they played him for the whole 80-odd minutes, so pretty good run.
Yeah, pretty awesome, eh? 100th game for the franchise as well, so well celebrated, and you know, they got the W, which is even special.
I thought it was a great round of Super Rugby because I think what we're seeing is teams staying in the fight. Highlanders stayed in the fight, gave themselves a chance. I think what you can't do is you can't go to sleep. The fact that we saw what happened, the Waratahs almost running down the Drua over there, which you know that's a challenge. To me, I'm looking at the game. I like what I'm seeing, and it's that contest where if you stay in, you hang in, you can change and get momentum really quickly.
The only one that sort of blew out, and man, they're going good. I mean, you make 14 changes to your side.
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, it has the ability to go out and guys sort of not really perform. It's a little bit rusty, but the Hurricanes, for me, they just continue that hot form, JK.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a couple of sides that are just looking a little bit better than everyone else. I think the Blues are getting there, but there was 40-minute performance last night, whereas I think the Chiefs and the Hurricanes are just playing incredibly well.
Should I stop them right now and say they're going to win the title? I can stop the Blues right now if you want me to. If you want me to say they're favourites, do you want me to do it?
No.
Okay, I'll wait. I'll wait. Just like the Australian teams.
That'd be good.
Like I said last week,
Yes.
I'm going to wait another week.
Oh,
But getting back to what you said last night, I thought it was interesting. The try that Omua didn't get was they were still in the game. And like you say, if you can score and then get quickly another one. I mean, Queensland, I think, got ahead of themselves, but they nearly came back and won it.
well, the blowout performance that you're talking about, Mills, was in Palmerston North. Fantastic to see rugby taken to the regions because it was jam-packed there at the Speedway. This Hurricane side in 2024, though, Mills, it is a different beast. How much credit do you have to give to Clark Laidlaw, who's coming in for the first season, and how much goes to Jason Holland, who's developed these players? You talk about resting 14 players, and yet Harry Godfrey and all of these other players just step up.
Pretty good, isn't it? And I think you're right. They're a happy bunch. You know, Laidlaw's always been talked about the fact that he brings a really good environment. You know, creates a really good environment. That first game over in Perth that they won, any year they'd go over there and they'd struggle, but they were convincing over there, and you run into sort of Super Round the following week. They continue sort of that run. I reckon they would have targeted those first couple of games to really sort of stamp their mark. And now you've seen the push. I mean, even the Crusaders game, you know, that's a game that the Crusaders possibly should have won, but the way that they finished, they just look really complete, really composed at the moment too, JK.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got a full squad, and you talk about it often, Goldie, how, you know, even Auckland or even the Blues, you know, with a couple of injuries now with Sullivan, you know, you've got other guys coming in, and that's the secret. And to take that risk, I thought it was a bit of a mistake. I made that mistake when I was coaching. After a couple of big wins, I changed everyone and didn't work out for us. So that means your squad is connected, and, you know, Laidlaw always talking about being connected. You know, I think TJ's been amazing. You know, he came on late, I think, and helped win against Crusaders, but looked great again yesterday. So, you know, I think the combination of a bit of experience and these young guys that don't really know anything else but just having a crack.
So you've got one team who's broken and young, which is the Crusaders. You've got a team that's fit and experienced. So Brad Shields and TJ Perenara, they're the two guys you bring into your team when you make changes. That's a significant difference. The Hurricanes are good. The Rebels are not good.
No.
The Rebels are poor. And when you've got a guy like Filippo Dungunu, who's one of their best players, not playing because they haven't paid him for his, his relocation costs, the Rebels are a shambles. And they're going to be gone sooner rather than later, if you ask me, in terms of Super Rugby. You can't have a situation where one of your leading transfers is not available for off-field issues like this. He was one of their best players early in the season when they showed some signs. They beat Moana Pacifica in Hamilton. But this is not a good rugby team right now. The Hurricanes did what I thought they would do because they are a good side.
Hold on, sooner rather than later, do you not think the Rebels will finish the season, or are you talking about next year?
Well,
you got to pay your players.
There's a fight coming for Australian rugby. That's a bigger question than I have. But bottom line is the fact that they haven't been able to establish themselves in Melbourne as a team which can get fans, but also the fact they're bleeding money. It's disappearing. Australian rugby clearly doesn't want anything to do with them because they wouldn't have allowed this to happen. No. There's obviously issues there.
Would they not be on central contracts as well?
Oh, I'm assuming they're Australian players. All I know is that
it's unwanted, really. I mean, they came into the season with financial woes anyway, and this adding to this with the players sort of not wanting to sort of play. I mean, and then you get a super round as well. So, I mean, the attraction there for players or people wanting to play the game in Melbourne, not looking very good considering what's going on.
Oh, look, I don't want to disregard what the Hurricanes did because it was great to watch. It was a great night in Palmerston North.
It was
really good. Beautiful night. No wind down there. Don't get that very often. You know, so all of a sudden they got out and played some great rugby. But if you imagine if it was their starting side, their top team
100 points
coming up, you can't afford that in this competition. And I think now what we're starting to see is the off-field is hurting the on-field. Doesn't work.
Absolutely, the Rebels are shambles, but when you look at the Hurricanes, they've got serious depth in so many positions. You talk about TJ Perenara, who's backing up Roigard, but look at their loosies. I mean, their loosies last week were some of the best in the competition. Then you bring in Brad Shields and Du Plessis-Kirifi. It's the luxury that they've got right now because the squad is connected.
Yeah, I think it's an All Black discussion because I think the two young boys, I believe, have a massive future. Shields doesn't because he's played for England. Kirifi's been around a few years, you know, I think he's an outstanding player, but these two young guys are really pushing for a little bit of X factor, you know. I think they're just like, Yosse, man, he's so dynamic. Gets off the base of the scrum, so, you know, but they are great problems for coaches to have, you know. Kirifi is dominant over the ball, he's physical, so what do you do?
Not bad, is it? I mean, far out. I mean, even the young guys that you're talking about, Peter Lakai, you would think Du Plessis-Kirifi would actually be starting. But there's a massive, it's a huge competition.
Did Clark inherit this, do you think? Or has he brought the best out of some of these youngsters?
I think he's brought an element of his, sort of his game, creating that environment, possibly pushing a lot of guys. There's also guys that are there that he's had for the under-20s at very late notice last year. So I think he's brought a little bit of that, and Jason Holland, obviously, over the last few years, have gelled them together.
Well, let's talk about your Blues then, JK, because they got the monkey off the back. The hypothetical monkey, anyway. We know that it had been a decade since they'd beaten the Crusaders at home at Eden Park. It had been a very, very long time. How important was that victory? Was that a coming-of-age performance, JK?
Well, it wasn't a monkey for the first 40, it was a gorilla.
Oh.
And both sides sort of played like it, I thought. You know, I said that for me, both were nervous. The Crusaders, you know, I've never seen a Crusaders side this poor. You cannot lose that many lineouts. So normally you'd think they'd be way more dominant in the first half, but the second half they came out and were just very good, I thought, for 40.
Poor in terms of his strengths. I mean, their strength is their set piece. You know, they've always come to Eden Park, and that's an area that they really target sort of the Blues, you know, getting up and sort of contesting. But, man, not winning those lineouts.
9 lost lineouts on their own throw and 44 missed tackles, Jeff. That's the strength that you're talking about.
If you put these two teams side by side on a piece of paper, there was only one result in this game. Pure and simple. There's All Blacks in that forward pack. Patrick Tuipulotu comes back. Ofa Tuangafasi. You've got Rico. So you've got Akiri Ioane. You've got Hoskins Satutu. Look, reality. Dalton Papali'i. The list goes on. This wasn't a contest on paper that the Crusaders were ever going to win. If they'd scored, the Crusaders had scored a try. Levi Amua had scored that try. Remarkable piece of defence from Caden Clark to get back. It would have closed the gap. I don't think the Crusaders could have come back and won. But let's be honest. We had a 21-year-old hooker throwing to two 21-year-old locks, calling the line-outs. That's why it's misfiring up against an experienced Blues team. This wasn't even close. The thing you have to ask yourself is, I've been hard at work. How do the Crusaders make it? How do they make it?
This will be good.
This is because you've got them to win the
No, I haven't
what?
got them to win it now, but I'll just say this.
How do they make what? What are you saying?
What I'm saying is it's taken 5 or 6 wins. It takes 5 or 6 wins, right? They've got the Chiefs at home next weekend. Unlikely given how good the Chiefs are. But here are their options. They've got the Tars away, the Force, the Rebels and the Reds. 4 Australian teams. 2 of those are at home. Then they've got the Highlanders away, which for them, they'll look at that, okay, and think there's a chance. The Brumbies will be tough. They're the one side in Australia, really, really hard. Then you've got the Blues at home and Moana Pacifica at home, all right? So they've got to win 5 games. They can do that. They can do that. Now,
is the Reds at home or away?
The Reds, I tell you what, that's at home. Now, the Reds just lost to the Force, the worst team in the competition, all right? So
the Reds
you can't tell me... The Reds weren't good enough to go and play the worst team in the competition.
They beat the Brumbies or not?
That? So let's be clear. But let's just be clear. All right, do you want to, in the first round of the playoffs, come up against a Crusaders team that would look like Bauer, Taylor, Newell, Strange and Barrett, Blackadder, Christie and Grace? Then the halfback's an issue. Fergus Burke will be back. You'll have David Havili, Levi Almoa, Sevu Reece. Do you want to come up against that, Johnny McNichol? I'm sorry, you don't. You don't. So they are well and truly.
So what you're saying...
They're going to sneak in, and if you finish first, you could have a Crusaders team.
Are you doing all this research and work because you picked the Crusaders?
No, I'm just saying
that was last week, though.
You can't count them out. You can't count them out right now based on what they've got in terms of their run home.
Okay, you tell me how many they can't lose then.
What's that?
They can't, so they can lose to the Chiefs?
They've got 8 games. They've got 9 games to go.
And they've got to win 5 of them?
They've got to win 5, probably get
so they'll lose next week?
The way.
So they've got to beat Queensland at home?
Yep.
They've got to beat the Brumbies?
They've got to beat the Rebels at home. They can beat the Force away. I mean, the Force have just had their first win. The Waratahs, they've missed a couple of...
not losing 9 lineouts, they can't.
No. But I think clearly got it. I'm just saying, the personnel that are not there, if they snuck in, if they found a way to get the 5 wins they need...
Well, they've got players coming back.
It's possible. You don't want to play that team at
well, I mean, they're going to be playing number 1 if they actually sneak in at 8, right?
Exactly.
And so...
You don't want that game.
You don't want them to sneak in hot form. But it's absolutely doable. I mean, this week here, if they can get that win against... I think the Chiefs will be too good, but you just never know with these sort of local derbies, OK? So they go down there. The perfect thing, their friend will be the bye. Okay, so they go refresh, they come back exactly what you've just mentioned, target those 3 Australian games, and before you know it, there you go.
A couple of you on the panel have been coaches, and I just wanted to ask you a wee personal story, because the questions have started coming in the press conferences to Rob Penny, whether or not he is the right man to lead this Crusader side forward. It always happens when teams are in a rut like this and you haven't won any games in the season. He said, someone actually asked him how he was going, and it was a really nice answer. He said being a grandfather is really helping him, JK, and it just puts everything into perspective. When you were going through a tough time in coaching, what helped you? What will Rob Penny be going through right now to try and galvanise this team?
It was absolutely horrible. Yeah. I hated it. I was mentally well, but I got burnt out. Wasn't sleeping. You know, I was really struggling, looking under every possible rock that I could find to try and fix stuff. Losing by 2 points, like, it was just horrible. I remember going home one night, my wife said, you should get out of this because you look terrible. And so it's not easy, and Rob will be suffering. You need to find those little things. I feel incredibly sorry for him. And when it rains, it pours. You know, like, look at the injury list, and you're right about the Crusaders. So it's a tough time, and you've got to answer the questions. You've got to turn up and do your interviews, but it's important that, you know, we show the man respect, because he deserves it. So it's just a tough time.
Hard job, AJ, if you've done it before as well.
Oh, I've done it badly. you know, in terms of results. I can't argue with the fact. And
Weren't you
there's no
guys
doubt it's challenging. No, we weren't allowed to be together.
No, still upset about that.
No, I don't hold grudges.
You do?
I don't hold grudges.
No, you do.
I don't. Or maybe some. Anyway, I go with the fact you've still got to have cattle.
Yes.
Yeah.
The players have to be good enough. You know, now, sometimes you've got coaches who can take a good team and get them to great, right? But if you're not starting at a level, you're not starting with experience, not starting with all the ingredients you need to be successful in a very challenging competition, it's really, really hard. And when you lose momentum and you start having doubts and you start looking at things, and then you can all of a sudden start looking at all sorts of things, all manner of things.
Yeah.
I think if they take a breath, and like I say, they look at the two teams that played against each other last night in Auckland, yes, you can go out and compete. But reality says you don't have the experience or the necessary ability right now to beat a Blues team which has got what they've got.
And the other thing, Mills, the mistake that I made was I did look under every rock. Like, if they fix their line out and maybe just get a couple of decent strikes off the line out, then they're going to be way more competitive rather than look at everything. You know, right now, you just got to go, let's nail the line out, yeah?
9-6 at half-time. That was the score.
Yeah,
9-6 at half-time.
Just before we move on to the Chiefs, just wanted to touch on someone from the Blues. I mean, it's easy when a team's going well to stand out, right? Cole Forbes, though, and his story, JK, he's been over playing in Scotland for the last 3 years, we've just found out. Zan Sullivan, we know, is now going to be out for a length of time. Have they just found a new gem in the sky? What do you reckon, Mills?
Yeah, Mills.
I like the way, I mean, in the last couple of weeks, he's been, you know, his energy's been there, but some of those touches that he had last night, JK, man, he was good.
Well, like, I thought it was his debut, but he came on a loose forward or something.
Yeah.
I thought he was exceptional when he came on. And his story's a unique one, you know. He went away at 20 or something to Scotland. He was in their extended squad. But the thing I like about him, if you look at him as a rugby player, besides he's got lovely feet and he's got a bit of pace.
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoyed about him, and he went out there and really took his opportunities. So, and Goldie mentioned it before, you know, when you look at how devastated the Crusaders are, you get Sullivan, who's probably your key guy, going off, and you get this young man coming on and just exploding into it. So that's what you want.
OK, well, what about the Chiefs? How do you go from 28-0 up, Jeff, to only winning by 7 points?
You take off Damian McKenzie.
Is that not a worry? Because in the two matches
definitely.
that he has been off for 20 or 25 minutes, the Chiefs have suffered significantly. We saw it round 1 against the Crusaders, and we saw it again. How worrying is that?
Massively, if you're Clayton McMillan and you're this side, because you're looking
need him.
Well, that's how impactful he is for their team. And the fact of the matter is when you watch them play, immediately it changes. There's a shift. And the challenge about Damian, though, Mills, is the fact that he's a unique player in the way that he plays. So no one can come on and play like that. So how do you then adjust tactically for, is it Josh Ioane, is it Caleb Trask, whoever gets that responsibility going forward is then, OK, I'm going to play like this, though, guys. You know, I'm not going to play like Damian McKenzie. That's really tough.
But they don't play like him. I mean, they almost, I mean, when you see Damian, he's so energetic, the way he takes the ball to the line, he sets up his guys flat passes right at the advantage line. Those other guys sort of come in and they don't glide in as hard as what Damian would. But also defensively, I mean, how about that tackle on Billy Harmon? I mean, you know, he brings that energy. And so I think, you know, when you look at it from Clayton McMillan's perspective, it's how do you get those guys up to keep that? And obviously they had a few discipline issues as well, which the momentum, they lost a little bit of momentum, but I thought the Highlanders were going to get blasted away after 28-0. And you think, how did that come back?
Never happens. We stay in the fight.
They did.
Oh, you stopped watching, Jeff.
No, I didn't.
Did they get better or the Chiefs got worse?
Well, a combination of both. The fact that the Highlanders all of a sudden started, you know, to take some of their opportunities is something they haven't done in the season. They didn't do it the week before against the Brumbies. Got in the attack zone and then all of a sudden weren't able to get across the line. But that's a learning experience for the Highlanders as well.
I think the biggest issue is that I think Damian McKenzie is changing the way that our first fives play. I've always said it, he plays like a rugby league standoff. So there's a lot more lateral parts to his game. So when you start building an attack around that and you put someone a bit more traditional on, it does throw you out of your sync because I think there's a lot of vision involved when Damian's playing because you've got to be alive around him to know what to do. So I think that if I was the Chiefs, you probably need to bring him off more.
I can ask you, Mills, though, is that an All Black first five?
Yeah. How do the All Blacks adjust to exactly what you're saying,
You don't want to answer that question, or?
Well, I think he is looking like they're going to be the All Black 10, right?
Deserves it, doesn't he?
Your question is built around, do you build a game around how Damian McKenzie plays as opposed to the traditionalists that you're talking about, JK? And that's the issue. Well, it's not an issue. I think it's a good thing that Razor Robinson's going to have, because there's no doubt when he plays for the Chiefs, and even last year when he was playing at the Rugby World Cup, you know, his style, it's effective.
Can I answer that? That's 300 yeses. Like, do we want to lead the game and change the game, or do we want to play traditionally? We've always been the innovators, and I think that the way that Damian plays is a new way on the attack. I mean, we're so defensive orientated.
Yeah.
In fact, if you had a wand and went back, I would have loved to see him out there in the World Cup final a little earlier, maybe. You know, I just think he just brings this thing that defences worry about. And when you got someone like Damian, defences slow up, and that's what you want. Yeah. So I think Razor will embrace it and go, wow, let's just build something around him.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point, and a great discussion as well. Well, someone who had a front row seat to the Damian McKenzie show in Hamilton was the Chief Tuatahi, Chief of the Day, of course, to celebrate Kids Round.
Hey, my name's Colby Colbus, and I'm the Chief of the Day today. I've been supporting the Chiefs forever.
Tell us, who's your favourite player?
Damian McKenzie.
Damian McKenzie. And Colby, what do you reckon the score's going to be here? Chiefs going to get the win, my friend?
Yes, but it's going to be close.
It's going to be close. Colby, let's get that ball out into the middle of the field, my friend. Away you go.
It's been an absolutely awesome day today for Colby. This has been an absolute dream come true for him. For him and the Chiefs, it means a lot. Colby can't actually play rugby. So to be able to be involved in something like this and something that is his biggest passion is pretty cool.
McKenzie has a chance to run. Down the blind side, McKenzie. Look at a link up with Ratima. The step from Cortez, that's beautiful.
It's been very good, eh?
Yeah, it's been a good game so far. We started well, but got to stay on. Finlanders are a good side, Colby, so.
I like spicy stuff. Yeah.
Wow, me too. Have to have it on like everything, except for like cereal and ice cream.
Does the rain interfere with you?
I'll try and make it not interfere with me.
The Chiefs get another win at home this season.
I'm Luke.
Hi, Luke.
What's your name?
Colby.
Colby. You enjoy the day?
Yeah.
You want a signature?
Yeah, just anywhere.
You've been doing a good job today? You've been on the mic?
Yes.
It's good to hear you enjoyed your experience, eh?
Yeah.
Bit of a nervous one out there, eh?
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
You played good.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I wish I scored a try, eh?
What an amazing day. The Chiefs have won, and this day has been very cool for me. It's been a very cool experience.
This is absolutely a very proud moment for all of our family.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's having a great day, so thank you, Chiefs.
Oh, that is so cool. I'll tell you what, stories like that for young Colby, that probably made his life, Jeff. Did you ever get to do anything like that when you were younger?
I was a ball boy at Rugby Park in Invercargill for Southland. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Great experience. I don't know how much of the game I watched. Played a lot of one-on-one down the sideline. Every sudden they're looking for a rugby ball. Oh dear, but here you go.
So you weren't doing your job?
Oh, no, I'm not doing my job at all. I just wanted to be on the field. It was amazing, you know. But those were the days when you had you still got the eye and the tin fence where everyone's banging on that. It was second division
Vinegar or tomato sauce?
What?
On your chips?
Oh, tomato sauce all day.
I thought it was
gravy nowadays. Gravy
for
nowadays.
you.
It's a great place in Dunedin.
That's what I went for when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The hot dog and the chips. How good was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Really, really cool story there. Thank you to the Chiefs for sharing that with us, and to Colby and his dad as well for heading along and being our reporter for the day. Right, I'll tell you what is amazing, Jeff, and that is the Fijian Drewers extra time win in Fiji against the Waratahs over the weekend. It was so dramatic. 7 minutes into extra time, a drop goal from young Valentini. It was absolutely brilliant, a thing of beauty. But the story gets deeper because 2 years ago, the Drua played the Waratahs. The Waratahs beat them in 2022. Darren Coleman was the coach at the time, and people were pumping up the Tars after this victory. Darren just wanted to temper expectations, and he basically said, well, hold your horses. We haven't beaten the Chicago Bulls here. It is the Fijian Drua who are fresh into Super Rugby. Well, Mick Byrne, the coach of the Drua then, who is still the coach of the Drua now, he's had a say.
Oh, I think, we may not have played like the Chicago Bulls, and we may not have won like the Chicago Bulls, but we won. And that's the most important thing.
2 years in the making. He turns up to the press conference in a Chicago Bulls hat, JK. I love it. I love the way he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's standing up for his players in this team.
Well, you should go to Goldie for grudges.
No, he's not wearing his heart on his sleeve. He's holding a grudge.
Yeah.
And you use that. You use that when you're a coach,
whatever
and when you're
works for you.
whatever it works to get a little bit extra out of your team. The players who were involved would have remembered that. But that's gold. That's outstanding. The fact that he knows exactly. It wasn't convincing in the end. He would have liked it to have been easier. And I wonder the hat sitting there going, oh dear, this one I'll get used today. I'll just someone just put that one away, will you? Put it under there, you know?
Was that drop kick a toe hack? Because he was so straight.
You would know.
I'd never drop kick in my life. But it looked like fantastic.
Well, Mills, let's bring in your moments then, because your moments this week are all about the perfect droppies.
So we're going to show that, JK, just to see if it is a toe hack from, the drill and Valentini. And how good. I mean, a penalty advantage. And look at the scenes. And that is the winner. And so that moves on to my moments, obviously, here. Dan Carter, dubbed the thriller and the chiller down in Christchurch, winning that game. How about this guy here? Doesn't go off his left foot. He goes off his right, wins the Rugby World Cup. Johnny Wilkinson. Zinzan Brook, he gets a shot. Hey, look, number 17 down there. Because I'm told by Marshy that he was overcalled.
That's John Preston.
Yeah.
John Preston, yeah.
And Mertz, and we've seen this plenty of times as well. Marshy's involved there. There he is, how good.
The first pass from Marshy was better than the second pass.
Why did he say hello to the crowd after that? Was there a grudge in there somewhere? Is that?
No one holds a grudge like Andrew Mertens. Because he's got such a great memory. He can remember everything and anyone who's ever wronged him in his entire life. If you've done it, you know. The moment you see him, he will absolutely remind you of it. The Zinzan Brook one's a great story, because Marshy turns around and sees the two options, and he thought, I better give it to Zinni. I better give it to him first. They never looked like missing, to be fair. My question mark is that what was he doing there in the first place?
Waiting for the drop kick.
Well,
he used to practice a lot.
Did he? Back in the pocket.
Well, what about one that you may be missing, Mills? And that's Matt Dunning, the former... This is crazy, right, Jeff?
Absurd,
when you think about it, 28 metres out, he absolutely nailed it. And then he got nailed by his team because he kept his team out of the playoffs because they needed to win by 2 tries.
Yeah. I remember watching this at the time and we were going, seriously, this is to try and make the playoffs. Beautifully struck.
It was nice.
Was he not trying to get it? Was he not trying to...
Apparently he wasn't.
No, I mean, that time of the game, brain explosion, I mean, if you're not trying to get it, seriously.
Why are you not kicking it?
Yeah, I'm surprised you could... No, wave it off. Don't want it. It was an honest mistake. But... yeah.
The best part about it is his teammates are absolutely livid with him. You can see them.
Can't take it away from them. He's got a Super Rugby drop goal.
He does. And it was pretty perfect as well. Thank you for your moments, Millsy. Time for a quick break, but we will be back right after this. Clayton McMillan is joining us on the show, and we're going to chat about Sam Whitelock's potential return. No mai, hoki mai, welcome back into the breakdown. Great to have you joining us, and great to head down to the mighty Waikato region where the Chiefs coach Clayton McMillan joins us now live. Some people would just say a win's a win, Clayton, but your team obviously has very high standards. You were clearly not too happy with the performance in Hamilton yesterday, but on a positive note, a couple of your returning players, firstly Josh Lord last week and then Amoni Narua this week, both of them have been out with lengthy injuries. Can you talk to us a little bit about these young stars?
Yeah, fantastic to see them back, Kirsty. Both have had an unfortunate run of injuries, but it was great to see them back out on the field. Josh Lord, big man, adds a lot of value to our set piece. Obviously, saw his ability, sort of why his ball skills and speed sort of come to the fore at times yesterday. So he's been a welcome addition back into the team, and also Amoni, he had a bit of a breakout year last year, and had to, suffer the misfortune of being ruled out of the World Cup, which was tough for a young man to take, but he's, dealt with that in his stride and worked really hard to get back, and, it was good to see him back out on the field too.
Clayton, I know he's taken a few dings already this year, Damian, but I just love the way he plays at first five. Do you just give him a free rein, or do you have to rope him in a bit?
Oh, it's a bit of a balance of both, I think, JK. I think he's, matured a lot, and he understands that sort of, that renegade in his game that, used to be pretty prevalent in his younger years. Kind of needs to be tempered somewhat, but only not to an extent that we actually, take away from him what he's really good at, and that's playing on instinct and backing his skills.
Okay, I want to ask about your sort of young guys. I know you've got guys coming back and really exciting, but some of these guys, your honours, also Poihipi in particular, he's moved around a little bit, and I think the average age is around about 23 or 24. But guys like that for you, I mean, they must excite you given, the load they've been under as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Mills, like something that we've had a deliberate strategy around is to build, the cohesion in our team. So it's still an extremely young team in comparison to a lot of others, but we've played a lot of rugby together now, and I guess that's part of the reason why we have been enjoying some success. Sometimes we find a way to win a game we probably don't deserve to, and often it's been the unheralded guys like Daniel Rona, Rama Poihipi, Kalen Boshier, guys that perhaps have sat, a little bit in the shadows of some of our more well-recognised players, but they're the real glue, and, they're going to be the future of the Chiefs.
Clayton, I was stoked my boys in the last 20 minutes kept you honest. The fact that it kept you on your toes. But I want to, and I talked a little bit earlier on the show around the margins for error and the fact, but also the ability of teams to score points and score quickly. Now, in the old days, we used to be able to shut down a game. You get 2 tries up, and all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, play a bit of territory, we'll be able to keep control of the scoreboard. Do you think it's different now? Do you think, I suppose you have to be more aware? Are you ever comfortable with a 14, 16, 20-point lead? Or does the nature of the game now mean that it can change and change very quickly?
Yeah, I think the dynamics change a little bit late. A team like the Highlanders, who have shown, vast improvement, have demonstrated an ability to, score tries, and they've got some real X-factor players here. And perhaps when the game looks like it's a little bit out of reach, then they start to chance their arm a little bit more. They start offloading in contact, they start taking quick throw-ins, and those are the sorts of things that make them dangerous, but perhaps don't necessarily have the courage to do early on in the game when it's more about sort of percentages. And for us, part of our challenge, and has been all year, and potentially the biggest part of my frustration on the weekend was that we put ourselves in commanding positions to really put the foot on the throat and kick away in games. But, we start to get a little bit, enthralled in the sexy side of the game instead of just, doing the stuff that sort of looks really pretty, but is essentially just the basics done really well.
Clayton, you've got a young lock in Josh Lord. You've lost someone like Retallick. News this week is, you lost Retallick. The news this week is that Whitelock's coming back into that all-black environment. You think that's a positive or a bit of a hindrance for the young locks?
I think the first thing is that just what an incredible player, and he's left a massive legacy here in New Zealand and for the Crusaders. And when you look at the young locks around the country, we've certainly got some outstanding talent coming through. And I guess the question really is, do we chuck them in the hot seat and they learn by being out in the middle? But can that learning be accelerated by having somebody of his standing sort of walking alongside them? I think there's a real balancing act there, and it'll be fascinating to see how that all unfolds.
Clayton, we appreciate your time on the program. Thank you for giving up your Sunday evening for us, and all the best heading down to Christchurch on Friday night.
No worries, guys. It's my pleasure.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Let's pick up on what Clayton McMillan just said there. With the potential news, it is just reports at the moment that 153 Test All Black, double Rugby World Cup winner, you cannot forget the legacy of this man. Sam Whitelock has been playing his rugby over in France at Pau with his younger brother. We thought he was done with New Zealand rugby. We thought he was done with the All Blacks, but it turns out a conversation has been had between him and the new coach, Scott Robertson, and maybe he's not quite done with international rugby yet. Clayton just said it's a fine balancing act. Where does everyone sit with this news? Would you be happy to welcome back this legend into the environment, or do we not actually need him, JK?
Oh, I'm in favour. I think it's a positive. I'm in favour of Bowden and Whitelock coming back. Will they start? I don't think so. But do they come off the bench? Do they get through to the next World Cup? I hope so. You know, we saw it, you know, with Coles coming on late. Who do you want? Someone with experience. And I think what we've got to realise is that a lot of our players are leaving. So we've got 660 players overseas. So to lose that experience for the All Blacks, we've got to win in between World Cups as well as the next World Cup. So, you know, I'm in favour.
Can I just come back to something you said there? You think that Sam Whitelock could make the next Rugby World Cup. Australia 2027, he'd be 40. You think he can make the All Blacks team?
Why not?
What does that say about the current locking stocks in New Zealand then?
Well, I don't think he starts.
But do we not have good enough players? I mean, we've been talking about Josh
For me, it's like if you are fit and good enough, does he start? No, but the last 15 of the next World Cup, it's going to be close. Who do you want running on? Someone with 20 Test matches or someone with 152?
I think it depends on how they're using him. I think, I don't know whether, and he's a legend of the game, you know, the most kept All Black of all time, but how are they going to use him? We're obviously in a period where there's a possibility that we're down in terms of that experience in our locking department, and he's huge. So to have him in that environment, if he's good enough and he's in there and he's beating the other guys, which I don't kind of think will kind of happen in the next 3 or so years. His immediate job, obviously, is to try and get these guys up to speed, because the IP that he's got and the experience is huge. That's world class. And so if they're bringing him back purely for that, and if he's good enough to play above these other young guys, then you play him.
Jeff, I remember something that you said last year. You were worried about losing Sam Whitelock and his IP, what Mills talks about, because you thought he was the last student of the game in that position.
The best student of the game that we've had at the line-out time for a long time, probably if ever, and what he brought to the All Blacks and what he brought to the Crusaders. And so there's no doubt that that's something the All Blacks are looking at and going, we see real value in that. So the question mark I have here is that how often are you prepared to start doing this when players who head off overseas and say, Lester Whainga-Nuku decides at the end of this season in France, you know what, didn't really like it here, I'm now off contract. Bowden Barrett was always coming back. His is a sabbatical situation, so they're vastly different scenarios, right? Sam Whitelock's got, I think, another option, another year. That was part of this at Pau. He goes, I want to come back and play. Now, it's whether or not you're comfortable players walking straight back into the All Blacks. Now, I know you are.
At 152 tests, I totally am.
Yeah, I get
Leicester,
that.
no.
Yeah, well, I just understand it. So these are doors that I know Scott Robertson has talked about in terms of maybe opening these and looking at players. I think he went through Japan and had a chat to Richie Mo'unga, OK? So he's looking and keeping in touch with some of these players to see maybe whether or not their circumstances are changing. The issue I have is if we go down this path and all of a sudden you welcome all these players back in, how much is this devaluing Super Rugby? So these superstars... no, I'm just saying, let me just finish. You're devaluing it because these players all of a sudden get a choice to go, what? I can go and play up until July overseas, and then all of a sudden I'm a free agent, come back and play a few games maybe to qualify, which you can do, play a few games like TJ Perenara did, Damian McKenzie did. They come and played a few games of club rugby, provincial rugby. They're available for the All Blacks again. Are we comfortable with players doing that, just deciding halfway through the year, I'm coming back?
Not every player I'm not comfortable with, but if I can just go back to something about what you said about devaluing Super Rugby. If you have players resting from their works, if you have players going away on sabbaticals, you're not that worried about Super Rugby. All you're worried about is the All Blacks, and that has been the case. We know that. It's the high-performance pool for the All Blacks. Until we change that, and I think it needs to be changed, you know, we need to extend Super Rugby, we need to have a competition where they can keep the television rights, the famous Heineken Cup that I keep talking about, and I know that you've been talking about changing the pay system. Until we let the Super Rugby teams stand on their own, they're going to be high performers for the All Blacks. And I don't like it, but it's been working for us.
I'm actually, in terms of the Sam Whitelock thing, Mills, I look at this and go, this is a really tough year for Scott Robertson to start. Yeah. Really challenging season. A couple of test matches in South Africa. There's an end-of-year tour which involves playing Ireland and England and France, plus another two.
Italy.
And Italy, and Italy, and Japan. So there's all of these things, you know. England are coming here. They were semi-finals in Rugby World Cup. Yep. So you add all these things up. Would he be really valuable right now for this season? I think so.
For a year.
And so for us, now that's where I can feel really comfortable. Yeah. I don't think Rugby World Cup at 40. That's a bit beyond. I think that's a bit beyond my imagination. Maybe in your imagination, but not in my imagination. But in terms of what he could offer for a season to play maybe 6 or 7 test matches, if he's on top of his game, I think really valuable.
Case by case, I think, and he's a perfect case, right? If you're going to bring him back and he's good enough to be in that environment to get... You've got to also remember, we've lost Retallick.
Well, why don't you just bring Brodie Retallick back then?
Oh, he's not the most kept ever. And possibly... Yeah.
But look, I think every story is different, Kirst. You know, I think that Brodie's apparently very happy in Japan and wants to finish his career there. You know, I think Whitelock wanted to go and play with his brother. I mean, playing in France 37 games a year, getting the, you know, kicked out of you every week is not Japan, right? Japan, we all know, is a little bit easier. So
we shouldn't forget last year how good he was. The Rugby coming off the bench. He was outstanding. Yeah. And so he actually found some of his best form for years. Ireland? So I'm not doubting if he was in that sort of health and condition and form, if he comes back from France like that, you know.
You'd be OK with it for a year?
I'd be OK for it for a year, but I don't want this to become the norm. I don't.
Yeah, but are you saying you don't want it to be the norm, or is it the devaluing of the Super Rugby?
If we played our Super Rugby players properly, we wouldn't have this problem.
OK, but if it's a 150 test match like Whitelock, so I don't think you can make the comparison to Leicester, because he left early. Well, how many tests has he had? 10.
And I accept that.
So let's put 80 test matches on it and you can come back when you want, or 100. It's only 4 people, isn't it? Mills, you can come back.
No way, man.
You're about the same age right now, aren't you?
Hey?
We could keep having this conversation over and over, couldn't we? But it is a really great debate to have. Time for trivia now. So sit back, you guys, because you know you're not involved in it anymore, because you squabble too much and you argue about the question.
We were wrong.
And you're always wrong. OK, so your trivia question for you at home, for you sitting on the couch, this is your trivia question this week. Now, Edward Hughes is the oldest ever All Black. But who is the second oldest? Who is the second oldest? We've got a list for you right after this. Do not go anywhere. There is still plenty more to come on The Breakdown.
Throws it up to Dane Coles in the hooker. Is under the post.
Dane Coles exploded onto the ball.
Simpson, he's trying a drop kick from a million miles out. What a goal! There he is again, offloading, finding Nonu.
Oh, that was brilliant from Sonny Bill Williams. This could be another extraordinary try. Christian Cullen, the hero of the hour.
Again, Carter kick and chase, and Carter scores. What a beauty!
Wow!
He's got the bounce. He's handed off his opposite.
What I loved about Jonah, because he was the best in the world at evasion, because he's a hell of a quick as well as strong. So if you have a look at a lot of those ball carries, they've normally got a step in them. So he's hitting the weak side of the ball of the tackler, and then he carries him, and then another one tries to come over top, and then there's another one. Quite often he's got 3 of them dragging, but it's because of that ability to offset people, hit a weak side, which then allowed him to use his explosive speed and his size. Yeah, the teams tend to keep the play away from Jonah.
That is going to be a fantastic series, and we're going to get the guys' thoughts on their All Black game changes shortly. But first, the trivia question. So we've just asked you who is the second oldest All Black. Of course, Ned Hughes is the oldest. So the second oldest. Here it is. We've got a full graphic that shows you 1 to 10. Who is the oldest? Dane Coles.
I would have got this right. Yeah.
Second oldest.
Yep. I was working on that game.
But look at the names and look at the ages of some of these players, like the longevity of Brad Thorne.
Yeah.
I mean, for him to be able to play at that level, at that age. Kevin Melam is another one as well, isn't he, Mills?
Are we sure Frank Bunce was 35 and 305? I'm not sure. Is that his... I was never sure of his age. I've never known. Was that accurate? Is that 100% accurate? I reckon he was older. I reckon he was older. Yeah.
So Sam Whitelock isn't featuring in the top 10 of oldest All Blacks, but he turns 36 in October. So that's where he's on the list. He must be just below the top 10. Righto, it is time now to talk our All Blacks game changers, players that changed the game in their positions. We're going to start off with you, Mills. Who was it for you? Who changed their position over the years?
For me, it'd have to be Sir Michael Jones. The fact that he started as a 7, he roamed out wide, but then when he sort of changed, had that horrific injury, he became this guy, the enforcer that we sort of always sort of known the number 6 to be. Chopped people in half, but still was able to sort of roam. So for me, I thought he was awesome.
Changed the game, JK? Michael Jones?
Yeah, totally.
Michael.
I mean, I played with him when he was, when he didn't have the knee injury, and he was just this incredible athlete. I remember making a break in the World Cup, and I was going full pace, and I turned, and he was jogging beside me. I gave him the ball. Dynamic, and then I think great players change the way they play. And after his injury, he went into that enforcer that you said, Mills, so totally changed loose forward play.
Your game changer, JK?
Jonah, I think, for me, was on 2 fronts. He was just an absolute athlete. Like, he was huge, he was fast, he was strong. But he was our first also superstar. He took our game to new levels. So for me, he was not only on the field, off the field. I roomed with him in his first Test match. One of the shyest men I've ever met, wouldn't say boo. And he grew right through that. So taken from us too young, but definitely a great change of the game.
I played with him at age group level, at high school level. It's a privilege to have been on a team with him. Helpful to be on a team with him, rather than coming in. Had to play against him. Frightening experience. But when he was in his prime, I mean, he's unstoppable. There's very few players that are unstoppable in a game. He was unstoppable.
What about off the field, the larger-than-life character who really changed the game of rugby in a professional sense? What was it like to just be around him, to walk down the street with him,
I felt for Jonah because it came really quickly, and he was a young man. The pressures, expectations, and he was dealing with, obviously, some health concerns and issues, serious health concerns, and the expectations every time he went out to play. And then there was no doubt, and you were part of it as well, Mills, is the fact that when you're part of the team, all of a sudden the fans said they only wanted to see Jonah. And it was convenient for us because it made our job easier, because all of a sudden, but he's signing thousands and thousands of autographs. He handled that so.
You've never seen wingers that big, over 120 odd clicks, and then he was running that fast. But such a generous guy too, with his time and so young, and obviously with the guy sort of growing up and looking up to him, he was immense. But he definitely, he changed the way the world looked at rugby, and also All Black rugby too.
What about you, Jeff? For you, who
I've gone on an Otago, mate. An Otago, mate.
Surprising.
No, that's not surprising. I think the game changed, and just bear with me here. When we played, the forwards, and when we started, the forwards' responsibility was to get the ball to the backs, right? So it was the scrum, line-out, maul, whatever it was, and so it was carnage and mass. You hit rucks and players coming from everywhere, right? And so the game sort of changed, I think, early 90s. Auckland did some different things, and then it turned professional. And so the only way to get possession back, was through the counter ruck. Whereas then it changed, and all of a sudden the fetcher arrived. And I think Josh Cromwell was the first of those, where he was tracking the ball, he was tracking the ruck. He was the support player as well. He did that really well. But when you watched him, he had his head on the ball at every time, whether on defence or attack. He was always there in support. But it was his work defensively on the ball, where all of a sudden, all of this stuff, great. He did this easy. But defensively, he was on the ball. And so he won the race. So before the tackle became a ruck, he became that first guy. And the fetcher became the jackler. and now everyone does it. And so this is before George Smith, David Pocock, Richie McCaw, Neil Back. He was the first guy. Incredibly long arms. He had these big, long arms, and he's always slouched over. He walks like that now because he spent most of his time over the ball. And so for me, when I look at it and we think how now that changed the game and how it's affected the ruck, and how we've had to change the laws to try and get this and put restrictions about what they can do. For me, you can see him, his tracking, his nosing, and bam, he's on the ball. I think he was the first.
Does he get the credit that he deserves for what he actually did for the game, do you think?
Yeah, I think he was like, you know, he was someone that changed the game. He was that guy that was... So I think it was 87, actually, Goldie. What happened was the All Blacks of 87 completely changed the game. So we wanted to get it wide. I was sort of lucky I was part of it, Mills, because the loose forwards had to then support. And then if you go a bit further, you put contesting in at the ruck, then you had to be an athlete and also contest.
How many rucks did you clean in your career?
None.
Yeah, and I probably did about 10 by the last 3 years I had to actually do it. Right?
So it came in when was starting to play. I mean, I had to go to a ruck, so I was all...
Yeah.
I don't want to do, but you looked at guys like that, you know. I mean, you always sort of seen the headgear and watched Josh Conference would get out of the ball.
Pretty cool. This is why we're talking about the All Blacks game changers, players that change the game and their position. That series that's coming up a little bit later on in the year is going to be absolutely brilliant. We're almost done. That is almost time up for us. Quickly tell us, will the Crusaders get a win this weekend?
No.
0-6. Chiefs on Friday.
Chiefs win it.
It's unlikely.
Unlikely.
But I'll be down there and I want to see the best of them again.
Okay.
Just get out there and fight.
Easter...
They'll keep scrapping. I'll keep scrapping.
Easter weekend in Christchurch, Highlanders, Hurricanes coming up in Dunedin as well. It's going to be a great weekend of rugby and we'll see you next Sunday.
And that is it. Golden point, 10 minutes of play. We have got a grandstand finish. The advantage is being played. Goes for the drop goal. It's on the